In this video, I'm going to take a closer look at the visibility problem in Battlefield 5. This is an issue many people have complained about, and essentially we're going to be looking at why it is so difficult to spot enemy players and what DICE can do about it in order to fix this issue. Now maybe it's not something that all of you have struggled with, and there could be a few players out there that actually don't really have this issue at all, but for the majority of players that I've spoken to, not being able to spot your enemies and only relying on the hit indicators after you've been shot to actually identify where they are is not good at all, and in fact it is a detriment to the game and all the hard work that DICE have put into Battlefield 5. If this issue was sorted, and maybe DICE patched the game in order to find a solution that benefited all players, Battlefield 5 could definitely get to a better stage and be a better game overall. High resolution textures look fantastic in Battlefield 5, and if you're a screenshotter or a cinematic movie creator, or one of those players that just sits back and takes in all of the eye candy instead of actually playing the game, it might work for you. But as a player trying to have fun, it clearly doesn't work in a competitive FPS game. Not only does it clutter up your screen, but in combination with the changes DICE have made to the lighting of soldiers, 3D spotting, and then some other things in the game, it has really made seeing your enemy a tedious task. Battlefield 5 also has TAA forced on. This stands for Temporal Sample Anti-Aliasing and seeks to smooth out your experience when gaming. It's fine that TAA is in the game, but as a player you have to be able to turn that off, and Battlefield 5 does not have that option. You are supposed to get noticeably less jagged edges with TAA versus things like FXAA, but the blur that is applied to everything you see cannot be acceptable, especially for a game that relies on players being able to see each other. Combining the high resolution and this forced TAA gives you that blurriness that causes you to constantly squint and try to focus on objects in the distance. Some maps are genuinely difficult to play because of this issue, and many players have actually complained of headaches after a full match of Conquest. It's not something I've really experienced, but I can imagine playing a map such as Narvik or Fiel, where it's quite bright, there's a lot of blurry objects, and of course you have enemy soldiers blurred into the surroundings with that camouflage. It can probably turn out to be quite a difficult task spotting them. This, then combined with the more complex player models, is causing real issues with the visibility in BF5. Instead of a complex model standing out against a simple background, you now have a complex character model sitting against complex textures. This looks fantastic in the trailers, but really horrendous when you're actually trying to play the game. You then have the camouflage, as I mentioned earlier, which, yes, is great for customization, but enemies blending in with the environment is not great, especially on a game where you really do have to spot your enemies, and the 3D spotting is also gone for the most part, so things get a lot more difficult. Maybe this could be good for certain game modes and certain playstyles, but for the overall fun of the game, it certainly reduces on that and leads to a lot of frustration with many players. On top of that, you also have one of the main offenders, which is the lighting. It's also an issue that DICE seem to be using a different system to the one in BF1. Soldiers don't seem to use the same lighting source as the surrounding world they're in, and therefore don't stand out as much. It is clear to see in this footage. So how to fix this? Unless DICE bring an entire overhaul to the graphics of Battlefield 5, which I do not think they will, remedial action will probably include the return of spotting in some way or another. Is this a proper fix? Well, it really depends on how DICE approach it, and in all honesty I don't think they will either, but this is just speculating. If they were to bring this fix in, what should they do? Well, Battlefield 5 was designed to be a game that removed a lot of the features that players had gotten used to in previous titles, in a move that would hopefully create a more team-orientated experience. This has clearly not been the case, and the team play in BF5 is pretty much the same as in all the other Battlefield games. However, now you have the added bonus of a half-baked attrition system and a list of bugs that can barely be listed in one video. Adding a small amount of 3D spotting back into the game might not be ideal, but in my opinion it could hit two birds with one stone. You'd bring a fix of sorts to the visibility problem without having to rework the entire game. You'd also improve teamwork if done correctly. I don't want passive spotting back, or everyone on the enemy team running around with a triangle on their head signifying their exact location, but a system that allowed me to spot enemies for my squad and essentially improve my ability to see players is a fix that has to be considered. Gadgets that spot players could also be brought back in. I know we have the spotting flare, but it needs to be across the board with all the classes. Again, there are specializations with the support class for spotting enemies, but I'm talking about something that would make your squad be able to see players that you're spotting and improve that team play and the importance of being in a full squad. Again, I stress that this is not a perfect solution to a game that wanted to move away from 3D spotting, but if that was the case, DICE really should have thought about making visibility much simpler instead of overcomplicating everything, forcing certain graphical settings on and ruining the soldier lighting. You end up with the age-old argument of immersion versus fun. Do you want immersion, or do you want to have fun in Battlefield? I want a mixture of both, but if I had to decide, fun wins every time. In previous titles, DICE got around this by having two separate modes, core and hardcore. For some reason in Battlefield 5, DICE thought it would be a great idea to mix the two modes up into one muddled mess, and then they brought in the normal core mode as well for some short period of time, and no one seemed to like it. Essentially what they've done is give nobody what they wanted. Attrition wasn't done properly, so you neither have a hardcore, low ammo, low health situation that requires increased team play and coordination to survive, nor do you have a more fast-paced arcade-style BF experience like Battlefield 3 and 4 core modes, whereby the vast majority of the player base can log in and experience fun. That's the key word. It's all about having fun, and if you can't have fun in Battlefield 5, then clearly something is going wrong. Let's have a look at what DICE do with this. It's going to be on a long list of fixes they have to bring to the game before Battlefield 5 gets to a position where I think people will start to sink in the hours and call it a good game. Right now, there are only a small amount of people that really think the game's great, quite a large amount of people that think the game's okay, and then you've got people like me who are very skeptical, since the previous patch that we had at the start of January didn't really address many of the major problems that I thought DICE needed to fix. My fingers are crossed still, because there's a long time before the next Battlefield game comes out, and therefore a long time to get this game fixed. And I'm also hyped about the BR mode coming out in March. Hopefully the visibility problem is fixed before that comes out. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy it, leave a like down below. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.